What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. We have got in front of me a 7.3 liter Godzilla engine straight out of an F-250. I picked this engine up from my buddy Nick over there in Dallas at Custard Core Supply. He sent this thing over to me because we are really interested in developing a package for the 7.3 Godzilla. And I don't want to speak too much on what all we have planned. But we are going to have my dad, Steve Morris, hop in here, and he's going to go through it with me. And we're going to give you the good, bad, and ugly on what all is inside of this engine, what needs to be improved on, what already is great, what we think we might want to do in the future with this engine, and I'll pretty much leave it at that. So basically the plan is for this video is we're going to tear it down, we'll go through everything, kind of get an idea of what parts we're working with, what we need to change for the future, and get a game plan on future builds that we want to do with this platform. So super excited to work on this thing. It's going to be awesome. I've wanted to do a 7.3 Godzilla for a long time now. I've been seeing really good things. I got my boy Kevin Schweizer is making like, how much is he making? Like 1900 horsepower with this?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, with stock blocks, stock crank, stock heads. We're not really sure where we're going to go as far as cylinder heads. I've heard bad things about these cylinder heads off the rip. So I've done a little bit of research on what people think about these, and the general consensus is that the cylinder heads aren't very good. But to be honest with you guys, just off the rip, looking at the ports, because the intake and the exhaust manifolds are off, I don't think they look that bad, dude, to be honest with you. With a little bit of port work, I think that these heads could actually float a lot. But that's all stuff that we're going to have to decide, and if it's going to work in our general application that we want to use it in. Another thing, without even taking this engine apart, I can see that we don't have that much deck thickness here. There's no way we could have that much deck thickness here, considering the deck is here and our cylinder head is here. So some little things like that. It does have a kind of interesting front cover situation on it with the water pump and everything. Kind of reminds me of like a Gen 3 Hemi, the way that they do their front covers and water pump assembly. Really, there is no similarities at all between this engine and a big block Ford 460. Some interesting things about it, again, in the back here, we've got a pretty interesting bell housing pattern. Kind of interesting rear cover setup. This is a new engine. I've actually never seen one of these before, at least in this setting. I've seen these engines in people's cars and whatever, and seen videos, but this is going to be my first time actually digging into one of these. I've never really worked on one, so we'll see. I guess we'll see. That's all I got to say.
Potential swap for blueberry.
Potential. Well, I don't know about blueberry, but maybe one day. I don't know. Cherry.
Cherry.
I mean, you guys know it's stock 302 stuff. I mean, if I want to make 800, 900, 1,000 horsepower in cherry one day, stock 302 ain't going to cut it. So maybe for cherry one day, that would actually be pretty cool. Wet weight on these engines, like ready to go, is about 580 pounds. So not insane, considering it is still an iron block. So at 580 pounds, we're about, it's roughly the same as an iron LS. So it's really not that much heavier. I think it might be like 20 pounds heavier than like a 6-liter iron setup LS. So weight wise, we're looking pretty good. Rough measurements on this engine, it really isn't actually much bigger than what an LS engine is. So we're coming up about, you know, from our bell housing to the front here, you know, we'll just call that like 25 and a half, 26 inches, disregarding the water pump and the balancer. Width, we are about 24 and a half, 25 roughly, which is about 2 inches wider and like 1.75 inches longer than what an LS is. So it's really not that much bigger than an LS, which makes sense why it only weighs a little bit more than an LS. The bore spacing on these engines, I believe, is a 4.530. It's a 3.976 stroke and a 4.2. I'm blanking on the exacts. We'll figure it out later. It's a 4.2 something bore. So, all right, without further ado, let's tear into this thing and get it done. All right, so we've got the valve covers off, and I don't want to get into the meat and potatoes of the valve train just yet because it is a very important part of this whole build. But right off the rip, I will say that it looks very similar. You'll notice this rocker design is very similar to an LS engine. Just pointing that out. Like I said, I don't want to get too far into it because I want to have my dad chime in and drop some ball knowledge on what we're talking about. So we'll negate that for a little bit here. We'll work on taking the front cover water pump balancer off, expose that timing chain gear set, take the oil pan off. Also wanted to say, in some of my research, because I did do a little bit of research on these engines before just hopping right into it, a lot of the guys were saying that, oh, the Coyote, it makes, you know, horsepower per liter from the factory. No, we're not worried about that because nothing from this is going to be from the factory. So these engines make, I think it's like 405 horsepower, which is not bad for a factory V8. For something that's 7.3 liters or 440 some odd cubic inches, that's a little bit doggish. But keep in mind, this is for a low RPM, high torque truck application is what these engines were originally engineered for. So we're going to be doing something totally different than that, obviously, because we don't build tow truck engines here, unless it's like pulling tractor stuff. But that's besides the point. Let's keep going on turning this thing down. We'll get that stuff ripped off, and we'll talk then. All right, our snap-on battery has got 1 bar left. We'll see if old girl can do it. Really? Like nothing. Well, I guess while I'm pulling this balancer off, we can talk about what I'm seeing here. So we've got our water pump off, typical situation there. You can see we've got our cam sensor right here, some form of coolant temp sensor. Not 100% sure what this is for. I guess we'll find out. Look at that oil in there. This thing's brand new. This must be a pretty low miles deal, which I would assume so, because I mean Godzilla stuff is pretty new. But yeah, it's like brand new oil in there, man. Ding. Okay, so it appears to be that we've got our VVT system right here. We've got a nice, looks like oil pressure fed timing chain tensioner. Another guide on this side, and we've got some form of spring tensioner right here that goes down to our oil pump. So it's a separate chain for the oil pump. Not 100% sure that we would use this in a performance application, but for the factory, that's pretty good. Let's flip this thing over and look at the bottom end real quick before we take the cylinder heads off. So this is something kind of interesting right here. Obviously, we went over our oil pump chain that drives this drive shaft, and the pump is actually way back here. So this will be interesting to actually take off and see how this functions. And it's interesting that they have this whole like cross member thing that goes across our mains into the oil pan rail. Something kind of interesting. So we'll get to this here in a minute, but let's flip it back over and we'll work on taking the cylinder heads and valve train out. All right, we've got our rocket arms off and our push rods out. Like I said earlier, relatively similar to what an LS rocket arm is. And they actually have a fairly decent size push rod from the factory. Granted, this is a really hollow, not really strong aftermarket push rod, but it is like a 3/8 diameter. We've got some pretty darn big push rod holes, as you can see. So we can fit, even in a factory head, a pretty big push rod, which is an advantage. Other things to note about the cylinder head is it is actually a canted valve cylinder head. So our valves are slightly angled away from each other. Actually, I'm going to rescind that because they're angled away from each other, but they are in a line. So looks like a couple of degrees of angle in between the two valves there. So it isn't a true inline valve engine, which does have its advantages as well. So something to note there. Let's keep going on this thing. Let's get these heads off, and I really want to take a look at what the lifter situation is, because I did not find anything online for as far as a good solid roller drop-in lifter for these. So it'll be interesting to see what they use from the factory. This is like the once in a year, maybe twice in a year that I actually have to use my E-sockets. So I'm happy about that because now I get to take these exhaust studs out with no issues at all.
See, Mom, it was worth it.
It was worth the several $1,000s for the kit. No, it's good. See, I have like lots of tools in my toolbox that like I don't use because, you know, we start and stop working on all kinds of different engines here. Lamborghini stuff, Audi stuff, stuff like this that you need some specialty tools for. So I've got like triple squares. Like triple squares are a good example. I spent a lot of money on a full set of triple squares and I don't use them anymore because we're not working on Lambo stuff. So if you guys want some triple square socket sets, hit me up. I'll sell them. Boy, this thing is crusty. What the heck? Look at all this buildup in here. That is not good. Peel this gasket out. We got our cylinder head dowels way up here. Pretty standard factory MLS gasket. See our lifters down in there, and we'll get to those in a second. Let's take a look at the cylinder head situation first, though, because that's a key component. Like I said, the valves are angled away from each other just slightly. Combustion chamber, it's not terribly fast, not terribly slow. Nothing really special going on here in the combustion chamber area. Definitely could use some work as far as just combustion chamber shape, and then what we'll have to do to this thing inevitably to get compression into it. Another noteworthy thing, big boy head studs is what we're going to use. We're not going to use bolts, but big bolts. So these are a 470. So this is like a 13 millimeter, half inch, if you want to call it that, head bolt size. So that's good. We do have almost kind of like a small block Ford pattern on this, the way it is only 4 bolts per cylinder, which definitely has its drawbacks. So something to consider there as well. And we've got this weird slit that is cut right here in between the cylinders. Obviously, I would imagine that is for coolant, but that is weird how they would do that. And then it angles up so it doesn't actually cross over into here. And this is technically, looking in here, this is a Siamese bore, which is definitely good. We have to have that. So Siamese bore, but it does have this slit cut right in here, which is no bueno. So we've only got this little bitty section right here for cylinder pressure to seal up on our gasket. Ideally, what we would do, and what I've seen a lot of people do on a factory block, is they'll actually weld this up. They'll fill it in, redeck it, and then cut the cylinders. So something to consider. Another thing that our buddy Kevin over there told me that has a 1900 horsepower single turbo Godzilla, he actually told me about this, and he did that on his engine and seems to be holding up fine. So something to point out there for sure. Weird how they would do that. Just that small little cooling channel in between the cylinders. I don't know why they would make that cut right there and just make it weaker. Let's get these lifters out. All right, we got our first 2 lifters out, and surprise, surprise, it is literally just an LS lifter. I mean, I'm sure there's slight differences, but 843, so it's slightly larger. Oh, my calipers might be off too. Yeah. Yeah, 842, so this is literally an LS lifter. So that's good. That means we got a lot of options for lifters. Plenty of room in there for a link bar as well. So there's nothing in here that would interfere from us putting a link bar in here. So that's all good and dandy. All right, so I've got our oil pump slash drive assembly all off. Put it back up there in the pan because I was curious how they actually have the oil flow in this engine. So obviously we've got our gear, drive shaft, pump. Right here is actually oil pressure out to the oil cooler, oil pressure back in, and it goes through this tube right here over to our filter. And obviously from our filter, we go here and then back into the engine via this hole right there, which feeds the entire block. So we'll see how the rest of this is gonna go. Taking a quick glance at our pistons and rods. All right, we've got our Godzilla engine 100% torn apart, and I got some cliff note parts I want to go over out on the bench with you guys. We'll start over here, right? So we got our piston and rods. One of the things that I read online is that guys are afraid to spin big RPM slash put big power on a stock bottom end. And from looking at this rod, I can see why. There's just not much to this piston and rod assembly. Honestly, and then this ring pack slash crown area in here is pretty thin. I could see why people don't want to really push big power with this stock bottom end, at least. Next, we got our lifters. Remember I said, oh man, that looks like an LS7 lifter. Here is an LS7 lifter. Here is a Godzilla lifter. Notice they are basically the exact same. The oil band is in a slightly different spot. And then we've got a couple of other things like this pinhole right here that's for oil feed for our push rod slash plunger is in a slightly different spot than it is here. So you can see we're actually turned 90 degrees. Other than that though, they're basically the same thing as 842 diameter. Pretty cool. And I wanted to also touch base on our camshaft. This is a massive cam core, so that's advantageous for us. Also something noteworthy, this is probably why this engine was a core engine. You can see that it started to eat this lifter and destroy this cam lobe. So no harm, no foul, because all this stuff is getting replaced anyways, so we can just throw this right out. Crankshaft. This is the piece that I was really wondering about, aside from the block and cylinder heads, because I know that some guys out there are pushing big horsepower with this crankshaft. So overall, I don't really see what's so special about it, to be honest. It looks like a pretty standard factory crankshaft. It's actually got a relatively small rod journal size on it, and some other stuff that I was reading, when guys want to put more stroke in it, because there's not commonly available crankshaft for these engines. I can't remember the guy's name. It's something Wolf actually did an offset grind rod like they did back in the old days to get a little bit more stroke out of the crankshaft. And he was making, I think it was just under 1,000 NA horsepower with it. So I guess these cranks are really good. Once again, I'll mention our buddy Kevin over there with our, I think it was like 1,900 horsepower, I want to say, is what it could make, or what it was making in his Godzilla platform. So that's a stock block, stock head, stock crankshaft. Not much really else can be said about the crank, because this really just looks like your typical stock crankshaft, but what do I know? This is my first time getting into a Godzilla. So cylinder heads, also not much to be said about these. I think that these have a lot of potential to flow very well with some port work on them. We do have a really long intake runner length in here, so it is quite a ways down there to the intake valve, but I don't think that's something that we can't overcome with the correct port program on it. Chambers, relatively large chamber, not too sharp, not too fast. It could be changed and added, certainly, but I don't want to give away too many secrets about what we could or could not be doing with this 7.3 Godzilla platform. Other than that, like I mentioned before, we've got a very similar rocker layout and rocker system to what an LS engine is. So the construction of this, I think, is going to be okay for what we're doing. I know our boys over there at Manton make a great rocker arm system for this, so maybe we'll be working with them in the future. On our engine block, let's touch base on what the oiling system looks like on this thing. We have got this big boy block strengthener slash jack shaft drive oil pump unit that's really unique to this engine. Don't see too many things like this, at least I don't, for what we do here. So this is kind of interesting to point out alone. But essentially how the oiling system works is oil pressure into the engine goes right here, comes down into this channel, and this is what feeds our lifter galleys right here. The lifter galleys then go to our piston oil squirters right here, come up to the front, and then we've got our crossover right here to our main, and then as well as our camshaft. So it's not really a true priority main oiling system, which I'm not a super big fan of. But like I said, for what we got planned, there are things that can be changed and moved around. So pretty cool, pretty excited to be a part of this project and dive into the 7.3 Godzilla. But before I let you guys go, I want to get my dad's opinion on this stuff. Hey Dad, come take a look at this. Something pretty different.
So this is obviously the Godzilla motor, okay? Uses a jack shaft oil pump. Huh.
Yeah, that's one of the most unique pieces of this engine. That oh, and I was gonna mention also, I've seen that a lot of guys are doing a front oil pump conversion on this. So they drive the oil pump off of the front of the crankshaft, just like an LS or Gen 3 Hemi. So for this particular application, we're probably just gonna end up doing a dry sump system on it. So that's not of too much concern to us. But for you guys out there that want to do wet sumps, that's available.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of neat, but useless. Then, so you want me to do you want me to do a little overview here?
Yeah, pretty much. Tell me what you think about it. Drop some ball knowledge for us.
Some what knowledge?
Ball knowledge.
What's ball knowledge?
He doesn't understand the young people terminology.
Is that some kind of young person slang?
It is young person slang.
Is that like baller?
Kind of, yeah.
All right. Well,
Like, you think about like where are the origins of ball knowledge? It's like a sports thing. I don't know. I'm not a big sports guy, so.
It's just like your dad that seems to know everything.
Right. Drop some knowledge. How about that?
Okay.
Knowledge.
all right. What's the common breaker stuff on this?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. There's not a ton of good information out there that's easily accessible, other than what I know from talking to people like our guy Kevin.
Okay.
Factory blocks, factory cranks, I know are good for quite a bit of horsepower.
Here, let me grab my caliper. Hold on. All right, caliper. Because the crankshaft looks really small.
Yeah, I was noticing that too, that the actual rod journals look pretty small on them.
Huh. That's like, this is actually smaller than like a Cleveland Journal LS crank. So that's interesting. Has a real small main. Not a real big fan of that. It has a two 125. Two 100. It's not even 100. So no, it is smaller. Yeah.
2084.
Yeah. What is it? It's not even 100, and that's some 26. So some weird two. That's actually like a stock main LS, but anyways, that don't matter. But that's pretty small crankshaft for big horsepower stuff. But
yeah, I know, it's actually
have
amazing.
Doesn't have any overlap. I mean, I guess it's a steel crankshaft. I mean,
Right.
I guess it's okay. I don't know how much horsepower that holds, but anyways, the camshaft is cool. It's a big cam. So that's a really nice camshaft. It looks like it's bigger than 55 millimeter. It looks like it's 60.
Yeah, I know. So that's a definite plus.
Yeah. Hurt. This one's hurt.
Yeah,
That's
no,
it. We
my
can't use
point
this
is-
in.
Oh my goodness.
It's got a bad lifter. Okay, so camshaft core, very interesting. Has a variable camshaft timing deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so get rid of that kind of stuff. And then you got 2 lifters out here. So it's an 842 lifter?
Yep. So that's a stock LS7 lifter right there that's in your hand.
Why would they go to... Ford has been an 875 factory lifter board forever. That's weird. They probably are using it. Probably just stole that lifter. But anyways, that's interesting. Then, yeah, I mean, it's not much for stock bottom end stuff. So that's doesn't mean anything. Cylinder head.
He's noticing that it's got a really long intake runner on it. And it's got, because it has to come up to meet the intake manifold at a kind of weird angle. That's
flat.
There's some, yeah, it's a flat angle up here. It makes the port a kind of funny shape.
It's a nice shape.
It is a nice shape, though.
It's a nice shape. That's like a, oh, it's a canted valve. Is it canted?
Well, they're just angled away from each other, so they're not actually. So they're in line, but angled away.
In line and angled. Interesting. Didn't know that. Exhaust port sucks, but at least my opinion. So I'd say that's like that's a reasonable, maybe a little bit better intake port than a LS3 head, stock LS3 head, and a little bit worse exhaust port on it.
And the exhaust port almost kind of reminds me of what like an LT exhaust port is. Remember on those LT heads we did a while back?
They don't go away from each other. The valves go in towards each other, away from the cylinder bore, which makes them flow better. So the valves go like this into the cylinder bore, and so it makes it goes away from the cylinder wall, makes it flow more.
Unshrouding the valve.
Oh, good technical term. Okay, that's good. So I'd like to see, so just individual pedestal mount stuff?
Much like a factory LS. And actually the rockers, I don't know if you had seen this or not.
Do they make like a...
That basically is an LS rocker. Now, Jessel makes a good rocker kit for these, as well as Manton. So Manton,
our boy Manton, or boy Trevor makes
push
one?
rods over there. Yep, they have a really nice rocker system for these.
Oh, nice. There's still mounts on that?
Well, no, I would assume that you would mill these flat
and put a stand on it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The way the pedestals mount, and there's not a lot of material there, but
right. So that is kind of a weak link.
Okay. Then block wise, I see it's got oil squirters built into it, and big cam core, Babbitt. This is what I call air cooled mains. Cross bolted. Oh, it's got a big bolt, small block, or I'm sorry, big bolt, small bolt, and a cross bolt. That's weird. Okay. Not a lot of engagement there. Interesting. Okay. Then material wise is reasonable. And then I don't know about this. What's the bore spacing on it?
The bore spacing is a 4.6 something.
4.6 something.
Yeah.
So a big block Ford is 4.900.
Yeah, so it's got its own bore spacing. Sorry, it's a 4.530 bore spacing on it. Siamese bore, and they have this weird little slit that they cut in it right here that allows coolant to pass through.
Huh. Okay. Okay. They put the head stud all the way down into the bottom, so I mean the thread doesn't even start for almost 3 inches, 2.8 inches. So that's nice. So I mean they're not pulling on the deck surface, they're pulling down in there. That's cool. I like that. And then this is the back of the engine?
Yep, so our oil pressure in, so oil pressure feed to the engine is right here through this hole that goes down the oil pan rail, and it comes into our lifter valleys first. So it's not priority main.
Where's the oil main at?
It actually crosses over in the front, and then there's a small pinhole right here that feeds it down.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So it's, yeah, it's not priority main, which kind of sucks, but.
Huh. Okay. Got it. Yeah, not a big fan of oiling there. I like where the studs or head bolt, must be a bolt, can't have a stud, that, you know, goes way down in there deep. That's all cool. The deck surface, that is pretty interesting.
These are our head.
That's
right
why.
here.
Okay, I see. Huh. All right. And then no shared lifter valley area. Interesting. As I'm looking at it, I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's kind of, I don't understand why they. What's the stroke of the crank?
It's 3976. It's an odd number. It's another metric.
Odd number. It's an interesting engine platform. I don't want to make a bunch of Ford guys mad, but it's kind of just a little bit bigger LS.
Kind of. Well, you know what the LS is based on, though.
Small block
It's
Ford.
Small block Ford. So what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Egg.
So small block Ford.
Could be. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of interesting about it. I would classify this as this thing could. This thing's hard pressed to make 2,000 horsepower without breaking parts. But I think it's got, probably looks like it's got head gas, would have head gasket issues, even though it's got a nice, the way it clamps is nice. And there's not really a really big deck surface here because it's so water jacketed. But that slit in the middle, they do some kind of, I heard about this, that
They weld it.
Kevin said something about that. Kevin guy said something about this.
Weld it all shut.
Welding it, that sure sucks. But so I mean, I think it could turbo, maybe 2,000 horsepower kind of deal. I see lots of room for improvement, especially up in this whole area here, and then cylinder heads. They don't make aftermarket heads for this yet, do they?
Nope. No aftermarket heads, no aftermarket blocks.
And they inject right up there on top of the intake port.
Yeah, right here, kind of like a Viper cylinder head.
Oh yeah, yeah. Pretty interesting. What are we gonna do with this one? NA. NA boosted.
NA, and you know we'll see.
So this is our motor, and so we're just gonna start looking at this to build, and then we have a possibility. The main reason I got this is because I wanted to see what everything is all about. So Kyle's in. Had Kyle start working through this and looking at it, and we'll do like some form of stock block, stock head version of it. Looks like, I'd be curious what they make at NA. I bet you could probably make. You know what they make NA?
I do. We were just talking about that. So Wolf is the guy's name. I'm blanking on his first name. Made like 987 horsepower.
Oh, I was just gonna say I think you could probably make 1,000 with it.
Yep.
But and that'd be like really. I think it's got a good intake port on it. I think that really is nice. But you know, you have to get right after the exhaust quite a bit. And I mean, it really, yeah. I think I could see it making 1,000 horsepower. Pretty good there. Does it make more than that? Really hard pressed.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's things you could do with, throwing more compression in it, more stroke in it, depending on availability for crankshafts.
But that stuff doesn't really make more. It's cylinder head limited right now, so that's what it looks like.
Cylinder head would be the key.
Yep.
At 445 cubic inches, they're what these are.
Okay.
It's got, on the larger end of small block displacement.
What's the deck height?
9,650.
9,650. Okay. Yes, I mean you could definitely throw stroke in it, make it 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, something like that. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. I think it'd be neat to make 1,000 horsepower NA deal.
Yeah.
I think that's what we probably should do, and then we can do a port program or work with some. I don't want to do a port program, but we can work with somebody to do a port program on it, and then we can CNC them here, you know, obviously, and do all that, and then we can do machine work and do everything here to make a good NA piece. I don't. It's not. This thing is not an ideal big horsepower thing, but it has some weak areas. Do they have cylinder head problems too?
Not that I've heard.
Breakages?
Not that I've heard of, but I wouldn't be surprised.
So I would look at cylinder head stuff as, I would say, it's a little hard to get in there and really look, but problematic. And then it all depends on how that. Yeah, I'd stick to my guns. I think it's probably, it would have other problems making boosts, because I think that head's gonna move all over the place.
Right. There's just a lack of material, and
There's a lack of material. It's cast. It's it looks like it's got a lot of. There's a lot of time spent on cooling here.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep in mind what this engine was designed for, they don't. This isn't an engine that's available in a car. This is a F-250 only thing.
Oh.
So this is for trucks. So
All right.
that's why they're kind of a lower duty cycle, lower RPM, higher torque. Because they're built for F-250s.
Yeah, and a lot of cooling system.
And a lot of cooling
It's
system.
towing. Okay, got it. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. There's room to go. I think we'll end up. We can do something here.
Lots and lots of thinking to do. Lots and lots of room to improve.
What's this?
That's where your thermostat housing is.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's almost kind of like where the Cleveland has their thermostat housing and everything up there, how they do the coolant.
Really super tall installed height on the spring. And it uses a 8mm valve. Interesting. All right, that's all pretty cool. Kind of neat stuff.
Anything else?
No, I'm trying to think of some really good comment.
Some wise
What
information.
Yeah, something like dropped the ball.
Something like that. So I'm Kyle. Thanks for sticking in there and watching my video, guys. Good to see you. That's
Steve Morris. I have a YouTube channel.
in case you haven't seen his channel.
Please go watch it, like, subscribe, and leave comments.
That's right. Steve Morris Engines. We'll see you next time.